Well, after struggling the last few years at the box office, Disney has had two movies have massive success at the box office. The first one being Inside Out 2, and the next one being Deadpool and Wolverine. And we're going to go through an article here from Forbes that talks about its major opening weekend, and it seems to be carrying into the following week as well. So, hi, I'm Jared with Capture the Magic. Like I said, this article here from Forbes is Deadpool and Wolverine scores $50 million weekdays for $550 million box office so far. Says after a big opening weekend that defied all expectations and set new cinema records, Marvel's superhero sequel, Deadpool and Wolverine, from director Sean Levy, who co-wrote with Ryan Reynolds, continues its historic run with roughly $50 million weekdays and nearly $550 million worldwide box office through today. And I think this was written yesterday. It took about $24 million domestically and $26 million internationally on both Monday and Tuesday. Deadpool and Wolverine should land somewhere around $635 million as it heads into next Friday and is on track to top at least $800 million on its second weekend of release. Low end, it looks to finish with at least $775 million this coming weekend, just $11 million short of being the biggest Deadpool film in franchise history. On the higher end of outcomes, Deadpool and Wolverine could top $900 million if weekday holds continue and as strong as Monday and Tuesday's sales. It doesn't seem to suffer a typical large drop on second weekend, like many of the Marvel movies have in the past even. So far this year, the narrative for successful releases have been low weekly declines in the 30 to 40% range. It says a final tally north of $1 billion is inevitable now, probably before third weekend, but definitely by the end of the third weekend at the latest. And the only question is whether it will have enough gas in the tank to keep up with Inside Out 2's $1.5 billion box office so far. I mean, obviously, this movie is a huge success, which I've had my complaints and my critiques about Marvel, especially since Endgame. I don't think Endgame as a movie, Avengers Endgame, has held up well as time has gone on. I definitely think Marvel since then in the MCU has not been doing that great. There have been some things here and there, like No Way Home was a big hit, but a lot of these movies that have been really a big success, I wouldn't really say is due to the MCU. And I think that's the case with this movie as well. I guess a quick review here. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I also am nostalgic for, I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, as most people do. And Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is basically probably the most perfect casting of an actor and a character come to life in film. And basically this movie is those two guys together, and just being on screen is what drives this entire thing. It's pretty light on the plot. There's a lot of things, if you really want to nitpick about it, you easily could. And so coming from that perspective, sure, like some of the, even some of the points of the movie about the characters are a little bit on the light side in terms of, when you start looking at the MCU before Endgame and really leading up into it. But at the end of the day, what people want to see, and what I wanted to see, is you want to see Deadpool, but I want to see Wolverine in his costume and, spoiler, with his mask. And you get to see that, and you get to see Hugh Jackman, who, even in a movie that I think some of the plot lines are a little weak, it's an excuse to put these characters in funny moments, to have them fight each other, fight other characters, lots of cameos. But even in the scenes, like there's a scene in this movie where it's just Deadpool and Wolverine, where Hugh Jackman has one of the best acting performances you may ever see. I mean, just a really great monologue by a great actor. And so he brings it in this role. Whether or not the script is that strong in that regard, I've heard a lot of people complain about that. I'm not going to say that it is, but the actors really shined in this, and whatever the script and the story may lack, it makes up for with what they do in this movie. So I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I have seen it twice. It's a lot of payoffs that you wanted to see for a long time as a Marvel fan, which is, if you're a Wolverine fan, seeing Wolverine in his yellow and blues was something that been waiting 20 years to see. So I understand why this movie is successful, but I don't believe this movie will do anything for the greater MCU. I really don't. It's a one-off movie, because I think what people really are tuning in to see is Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds together as these characters. And I don't think that this is anything you can replicate outside of these two characters in other movies going forward that would even come close to replicating that sort of success for this. And they kind of go into this article as well. They said the enormous popularity of Deadpool and Wolverine, but all but guarantees we expect to see Hugh Jackman return to the role at least one more time for Avengers Secret Wars when it arrives in May 2027. Now, the rumor is Hugh Jackman has he signed a 3-movie deal. I believe that includes Deadpool Wolverine. So you likely would see him return in Doomsday, which is uh, they got rid of the Kang dynasty. Now they're doing Doctor Doom with Robert Downey Jr., which we talked about in another video. That's a whole different conversation, but I think you probably see Hugh Jackman in there, and you probably would see him in Secret Wars. And they also go on to say here, but whether that will truly be Jackman's final outing in the iconic role remains to be seen. If he's helping elevate films to billion-dollar box office levels, there's pretty obvious argument for him to stick around. It says, indeed, I fully expect Jackman to keep popping up from time to time, especially with Deadpool. Because, yeah, I mean, well, if you've seen the movie, you won't be surprised if he keeps popping up, put it that way. Even the MCU's imminent rebooting of the X-Men characters can take place without stepping on plans for Jackman to reappear as an alt-universe Wolverine for additional fun missions with Deadpool. That is true. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If they want to do a series of movies where Deadpool and Wolverine go around and basically just mess up the multiverse, because I'm not a fan of multiverses, I think that would be pretty fun. And not to mention in this movie as well, they poke a lot of fun at the MCU. And basically, for all the people that have been saying, no, it's just as great as it's always been, I think Marvel would disagree with you, and this movie would disagree with you because they poke a lot of fun at the fact that ever since Endgame, the MCU has not been that great. But they go on to say Jackman is in his mid-50s, so if Marvel wants to get a few more movies out of him while he's in his prime Wolverine shape, they'll need to get moving. The costumes do allow for a degree of suspension of disbelief that the characters are still in muscle-bound shape, of course, but I'm guessing the combination of age plus new X-Men born of Marvel Studios' own plans and choices will prevent any actual moving forward of the previous cast versions once the new blood is up and running. I mean, Hugh Jackman, it was definitely on the Marvel protocol, which, no fault, HGH, steroids, whatever. Like, he looks great, but he's in his 50s. So he probably, if you're going to do these, you got to do these probably within the next few years, which would make sense that this would end at Secret Wars, because I would assume they're going to reboot everything, because this is what they kind of do in the comics as well. Is you get to the end of a multiverse, probably do Secret Wars, reset everything, and then start fresh with some new ones. And, in terms of who could play Wolverine, there's a cameo that's in the movie that maybe he's a character that could do it as well. But either way, this movie is a massive success, but it is one which I don't think the MCU has much to do with. Now, yes, they put this movie together, but this vehicle is completely driven by Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. This is not, the popularity of this movie is mostly due to Hugh Jackman being in the X-Men movies in the 2000s on the Fox side of things. Now that, Disney bought Fox, he can be in these movies. And Deadpool, which Deadpool, if people remember correctly, wasn't going to happen. And Ryan Reynolds recently said he was one of the people, he leaked out. There was they had put together sort of a teaser clip of Deadpool for studios, and they didn't greenlight it. They released it onto the internet, and they saw people started loving it, and they decided to make the movie. So, I mean, Ryan Reynolds made Deadpool happen in that first movie. He didn't even I believe he didn't take a salary. I can't remember. He definitely gave up a lot to get that movie made because he just wanted it to be made. And Hugh Jackman at this point in time is Wolverine. So this movie and its success is due to those characters basically at this point. So I don't think there's anything in this movie that they can replicate other than doing other Deadpool Wolverine movies, which that shtick would get old. I'm not going to lie, eventually. But if you said they were going to do 1 to 2, maybe 3 of these movies, and the whole point of it was to essentially blow up the MCU's timeline and get everything reset, I'd be on board with it because I'm not really invested in the MCU now. I don't think it's been very good. I don't care about any of these characters that they've introduced since Endgame, which is why I think you're seeing them, go back to the Russo brothers and get Robert Downey Jr. to come back, even though he's playing, quote, Dr. Doom, but obviously you don't bring back Robert Downey Jr. at the amount of money they brought him back for just to play Dr. Doom. He is going to play Iron Man. I would almost guarantee that. So I think this starts to bring back to some nostalgia to try and salvage what they can out of this phase of the MCU and then reset things. But either way, this movie is a massive success. It is going to make $1 billion. I would not be shocked if I had to make a prediction. I would say it will make more than Inside Out 2 because I do think this has some legs to it. Usually you do see a pretty big drop off with superhero movies, but given this one's more almost of a comedy and it's such a unique movie, I'm not going to be surprised if it has a massive second weekend and ongoing. So I think this probably will be the biggest movie of the year if I were to guess. You could nitpick it if you want to on the story, but if you love Deadpool and you love Wolverine, especially if you like Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, you will enjoy this movie. And it's not hard to see why it's been successful. It's a self-contained movie that's enjoyable, has a lot of nostalgia, and it's two characters that people have already loved and are happy to see together on screen. But that's going to be it for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel as we do lots of coverage of pop culture, theme parks, and other things like that. And let us know in the comments what you think about Deadpool and Wolverine. And do you think this actually means anything else for the MCU, or do you think this is more of a self-contained movie, kind of like what I think it is? And until next time, we will see you later.